Do you feel that in a time when we are more connected than ever, we are drifting away from real human connection, especially to ourselves? I do. Hi, I'm Latino, and I want to invite you to join me and my very inspiring guests in exploring ways to reconnect to your essence, to your definite purpose, to what makes you tick. Are you ready? Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Back to Basics, Reconnecting to the Essence of You. I'm with Erin Gray today. She's the founder of Generate a Life Well Lived, which empowers female entrepreneurs to trust themselves with their money, their bodies, and their intuition. Erin is a former certified financial planner and ran her family's water and wastewater construction business for over a decade. She's passionate about being a financial mentor and believes that our money and our business can only thrive at the level of our emotional well-being. She's also the podcast host for Your Money, Your Rules. So this is going to be good, Erin. Welcome to Back to Basics.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
I love it. I mean, money is one of those subjects that it's of interest to everybody. So I think you're onto something with your podcast.
It definitely has been a huge part of my life and a journey that I've had to kind of twist and turn and roundabouts and all the things. But I think it impacts a lot of people.
That's great. So, well, I mean, I'm always curious about the origin story. So I want to hear about the younger version of you, what she dreamt about, what you thought you were going to become. And then I'm sure how that the road twisted into where you are today. So,
yeah, I think, younger Erin, I mean, this doesn't necessarily make my parents so happy to hear this, but the younger Erin really just wanted to feel safe. Like when younger Erin was at that age, right? She didn't know those words, but like, that's what I remember wanting to feel. Like my parents fought about money a lot. And my dad has always been entrepreneurial, and seeing him and him wanting to empower, my siblings and myself with money, and also recognizing this conflicted relationship around money of like, I saw what money could do and what you could have with money and the tools that you could use money as. And then I also saw that like conflict between my parents and, even though we did have enough, always feeling like we didn't have enough. And so really, I love helping people, but I always chose careers that I knew I would make money in because I wanted to feel ultimately, right? Like I didn't have the language back then, but I really wanted to feel safe when it came to money and my emotional well-being.
That's very interesting. And that I think I can relate coming from a family business and working in the family business. I think anybody that is in that situation. I mean, entrepreneurs for sure, but when the whole family, sometimes the entire family works. Mm-hmm. Like in my case, is my brother, my sister-in-law. So when something hits the family, it hits everybody. And so it's very hard, as you very well said, to kind of balance out, like when times is good, but when times are bad. And so to control that scarcity mindset is very, very difficult. So I love that you bring up that point, because people always think entrepreneurship and they always look at the upside of that journey.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us, I don't know if this has been your experience, but at least my clients that I've talked to and other women, is I call it almost this poverty conscious mentality. Like, even though if you were to look at our bank accounts or our investment accounts, someone from the outside looking in would be like, you're fine, it's okay. But in the body, we don't feel that way because of our upbringing, or maybe that generational, trauma that maybe our parents have experienced and has just kind of passed down from generation to generation. And so it is this scarcity mindset, but it's an abundant actual investment accounts. You know what I mean? Does that make sense in terms
absolutely.
Of like, yeah.
I confess, I suffer from that. It's like, what's the problem? It's like, you're okay. But sometimes it's just, and then of course you have other situations and circumstances in your life. In our case, being from Venezuela and having a government that, you can you can lose everything
Yeah.
from one day to the other. And there are a lot of people in those circumstances, or dealing with a illness or something where you say, yes, I'm doing good, but my ability to keep doing good may be in jeopardy. And that's where that scarcity mentality creeps in, I think.
Very much so. Yeah. It's all about safety, security, protection, survival.
Well, this is great because I think a lot of people will resonate with whatever angle of this we will discuss. But so you, of course, no, of course, but I read it, so that's why I say, of course,
Yeah.
you became a certified financial planner. So it makes a lot of sense with everything you're sharing with us. I know you also were involved in the family business. What happened first? I mean, it takes us a little bit into that
Yeah.
dynamic. Did you feel pressure to go into the family business? So this
No.
this
Yeah.
comes from somebody. This is a
Yeah.
personal question.
So I started off wanting to go to medical school, and I started working in the hospital, and I got trained to do like pharmacy technician where you make all of the drugs. And I went over and started working in the pediatric ICU, kind of like as a nurse's aide, but just I had all of that pharmaceutical experience. So it was just something else that I could, draw from. And here we go back to serving and helping people. And also as a physician, you're going to make, as a specialty, right? You're probably going to make a higher income than just a general practitioner. But I got in and then I recognized like, I don't want to work this much. I don't want life to start in 12, 15 years, when you get done with residency or fellowship or something like that. And so I started to kind of look around and see like, okay, well, what else do I like to do? And I got into the business school, and it was so, when I say easy, what I mean is it felt a lot easier than organic chemistry came to me. And so, I was making really good grades in finance, and I really liked it. I don't think I had ever even given myself that option to explore finance because my mom was a nurse. I had a lot of healthcare workers besides, my dad in the family. And so it was just like making money, helping people. That's what I was going to go do. I was going to go be a doctor. And so when I started to explore financial planning, it was kind of like a great marriage, right? Like you get to help people. You also get to, understand money. And so that lasted probably about 6 years. And obviously, like anything, when you're building your business, you're working a lot. And back at, 20 plus years ago, I was probably in a very male dominated industry and almost kind of like feeling like I mean, I was young too. I was 26, 27, something like that. So I was trying to feel like I had to prove myself, prove my knowledge, I attracted a lot of older clients, which is fascinating, but that constant, like working the amount of hours. And that was also probably to my mindset of growing up, right? Like one of the things that my father taught me was like, in order to make a lot of money, you're going to have to work hard and you're going to have to work a lot of hours, which is not true. And also that was a belief that I grew up with. So I just worked a lot of hours. And when I met my second husband, we were talking about, this was probably, several years in, like talking about having a child. And I'm like, how am I going to have a child and work like 70 hours a week? Like that does not really. And so I took a step back, and my dad, he and I have always been close. And he kind of said, hey, why don't you come out here and help me? Just kind of nonchalant, like, hey, just you could kind of help us. I don't really have anybody I can trust that really can like take care of the money. And it was very like, hey, just see how it goes. But then I got in, and then I started to see, whoa, we need to make a lot of changes. So it quickly became like, not just help me with a couple of things. It was like, we really need to revamp this whole entire structure here. And so that is kind of what I dove into. And really, I mean, in 2009 in the US, at least, I mean, you had people that became extremely wealthy, and you also had people that had a very hard time. And obviously, my dad and my uncle with their mindset as well. And so with the construction industry, like we were just trying to figure out how to make it work, and, really when I recognized like how much they were in debt, and I was like, this cannot continue. Like, this is not a viable business model. Like we really need to make some changes here. And we started doing that, slowly, obviously. Well, some things were very quick, but some things, and just really changing the way that they ran their business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this of like invoicing, like they're happy to do the work, but the invoicing, the bookkeeping side of that. I mean, even though he had a bookkeeper, but that part of it, of like the service guys actually doing their invoices, it's like, this is great that you're going out and doing all of this work, but if you don't invoice for it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so really, starting to use, they already kind of use contracts, but really being very like, no, every, you know, business deal that we do, we are going to have a contract. It is going to state the terms and conditions, and we are going to hold them to that, which I call it the good old boy kind of. That's kind of where they came from, like a handshake was good enough. And I'm like, a handshake is not good enough anymore. Because when I talk to the attorney and they say, where's your contract? What are your terms and conditions? How late are they on paying? And you don't have anything to back that up. Like you don't have a leg to stand on.
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. That's good advice for sure. It was a better world when you didn't
Yeah.
need all these things, but that in today's age is crazy. So I guess that's great. You got involved in the family business, but you had a moment where, for what I understand, you kind of completely pivoted into you sound like you've always been attuned with what your alignment and what you
Yeah.
enjoy, which I think it's great. I think a lot of people, we don't think of that. What do I like to do? Do I really enjoy what I'm doing? And so that way you found your way into founding your company, and just you found this love for empowering others, and take control of the money and take control of their financial, especially women entrepreneurs. So how was
Yes.
that whole discovery process, and to bring that idea to life?
Yeah, very insightful. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? Waking up and realizing, kind of like the bill of gold goods that I have been sold, like, oh, if you reach this a certain amount of money in your retirement, and you've done all of these things, and I call it like check the boxes. Waking up and realizing like my dad was getting to a point where he and my uncle were wanting to sell the company, and they were looking to me, and I was just saying like, I don't think that that's really what I want to do. I know that that's what you want to have happen because that's an easy transition. And also I would be doing it strictly for the money, not from the love and the heart of like, this is a passion of mine. And so really having to say like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to take over. I don't want to buy the company. I don't want to be in partners with some other people. And so really recognizing like, okay, Erin, what do you want to do? And so at that time, I had already kind of started my own self-development journey, started, getting coached, helping other women. And I coached for about probably 2+ years, but I had worked ever since I was probably 12 in some capacity. And what I recognized is I just wanted to take some time off. And before I really started to, like, it had always been about like, what is the next goal, the next thing, the next whatever. And so really giving myself some time to just take time off, which was in 2021 when I decided to do that. And 3 months turned into it was probably closer to 3 years, 2.5, 3 years of taking time off, spending time with my kid, traveling with my husband as well. And then recognizing as I traveled the world, as I talked to more women, that this issue with money isn't just what Erin feels. This is a worldwide thing that a lot of women feel, and we aren't talking about it. And most of the time, we're not seeking support on how to change our relationship with money so that we can feel nourished and supported by money, and also make a lot of money, have a lot of money, and have businesses that support us. And so when I came back, recognizing like, this is what I want to do. Like I have so much knowledge, like financial knowledge, business knowledge, and also the emotional part of it that I don't think a lot of us talk about with money. That is really, it's just as important as what I think of the financial knowledge, and really helping and supporting women to marry and blend both of those, right? Like we can't just think abundant thoughts and money comes to us, right? We also have to do the things. And also we can't just be like how I was, where I just was doing so much of what I call the 3D, the financial knowledge, saving and investing, but I felt terrible about money no matter how much we had. So we have to have both of those, and they both have to be in alignment, I should say, or we should be able to feel good about both of those sides as we are working with money.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. It's something. It's almost like cliche or something that you feel guilty in. Like I personally know that you feel abundant, you feel thank God you have a great life, and when it's like, why would I want more? Like even wanting more money
Mm-hmm.
or wanting to, it's just there's a conflict there,
Yeah.
And it's a tough one to break because
Yeah.
you feel guilty, and a lot of people feel stressed out. So when you talk and you have a podcast where you talk about this, so I would love
Yeah.
to hear about that. Your money, your rules. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what you discussed there. I'm sure there's a lot we can unpack, but I would love to hear a bit about how you came with the name. And how is it? Because it sounds like everybody has to have different rules about money.
Yeah. I think the name came from really me saying everybody has a different, I think in years past, a lot of people might have agreed that success meant a certain amount of money, right? But I think that has changed. And I think when I think about your money, your rules, it's like, how do you actually want to use your money to support you in your lifestyle? Some of us, right, we might want to live in the big house and we might want to drive the fancy cars. Some of us might be completely okay living in a smaller house and going on vacation more often, or helping our children's school, or, whatever it might be. And so I think that there's no right or wrong way to have and use your money. And I think the financial industry has kind of taught us like, you're supposed to work, you're supposed to save for retirement, you're supposed to retire and then, have some fun and then pass away, right? Versus like, what do you want your life to look like now? And also like, I think retirement is also a fallacy too, because I think we tell the body like next stop is death, right? So what kind of relationship and how do you want to be with your money? And the way that you are with your money might be completely different than what someone else is, and that's okay. And so really getting clear on like, what do you want for your life? How do you want to be with your money? How do you want to run your business? And so helping and, on the podcast, specifically talking about that money, a lot of mindset, emotional regulation, how those two, coincide together, and really just empowering women to start trusting themselves with their decisions and stop shaming and guilting themselves for wanting more. And it's okay to want more, right? It's okay to say, I want to have more money because I want to drive a nice car, or I want to take my family on vacation, or like money allows us and gives us options. Like it's okay to say that we want to have that. But like you have talked about before, we have been shamed for asking, probably growing up. It's like, if we ask for something, it's like either we were told we've been asking too much, or, we don't have that money, or we can't afford that, or that's too expensive. And so we've been conditioned to stop asking for what we want.
Mhm. Yeah, so true. And it's funny, I don't know if you see it because you coach a lot of people, but it's to me it sounds like almost, and I've interviewed over now probably 290 people, and some of them very successful. And it seems to me like sometimes I find these patterns where people have admitted on the podcast to having achieved the ultimate financial freedom very early on in their lives, and then having had to like almost walk it backwards from that ultimate financial freedom, super rich, to then realizing I'm not fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to now do something else. And then the opposite journey, like somebody that maybe is more living in alignment, in purpose, helping others, but then they don't get where they want to go financially. So it seems to be like on the self-development, let's go, world, that
Mm-hmm.
there has to be a very a lot of fine tuning into how do we achieve both things, well, feeling fulfilled while also, getting ahead a little bit on the financial side. What's your experience? What you coach a lot of people is any of this
100%.
theory maybe?
Yes, 100%. Like that is ultimately what I think we need, because we've been missing, right? It's like, it's not enough to just make all the money, because money isn't going to, people that don't have money, when you hear this, they'll be like, you're crazy. But people that have money, if you've had money or do have money, you know it doesn't make you happy, right? It might have that short-term effect where you get to, but at some point that newness wears off and money doesn't bring the feelings that you really want, right? And so here we go back to, okay, so having money, but I'm not denying not having money, right? Having money is a lot more fun than not having money, right? So having those choices, but really being clear on what you want, because I think when we're chasing money, we're chasing something that is very fleeting and not fulfilling. And you have to really start to get down to the root of like, what does light you up? And for a lot of us, if you're entrepreneur, right, they're your business. And sometimes the answer is not my business anymore, right? Maybe I do need to pivot. And that feeling of, but I've made so much money in this type of business, that fear of, oh, pivoting and wanting to change. But I think that we have one life, and I think we get to choose it every single day, every single moment. But wanting and having that desire to feel fulfilled and joy and peace. And I think a lot of times we talk about financial freedom, but I don't think a lot of us feel free. I don't think a lot of us feel at ease and at peace with our money. I think for maybe some of the ones that you're referring to, because this used to be me, it's like we're constantly chasing that next number, but that number is what we're chasing, is trying to fill something as a void within, versus what do we, almost like an inside out expression, versus trying to have the money give us that feeling within us.
Mm. Yeah, that resonates for sure. And I think what's something you say about defining what lifestyle you like, because I see wealthy people, but they don't like to travel a lot. So I'm like you. For me, I much rather live in a small house and be able to do my trips and have the freedom to say, oh, there's an opportunity to go here, and say, yeah, why not? And not having to think, can I take the trip? To me, that's the ultimate goal, right? And of course, after you fulfill all your basic needs. But there's people, for instance, that don't like to travel and don't like to, and so they're very mellow. And so they really can live with very little based on who
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
And so that's also something that it really depends about what you enjoy and what you like doing. And that the other thing is like, I've seen a few of them on the show, like people making lots of money, go bankrupt, making more, like every time they stood up, because I think they're passionate about what they do. They believe it can happen. They know, well, it didn't work out this time, I do it again. That they make it happen again, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, that's just because I believe that. I mean, somebody that does that, it's you truly believe you're a wealthy person, right? Because if you've done it once, you can do it over and over again. And it's just how quickly can you do it again? But there is something there that is causing them to create that situation where they do go bankrupt, right? So there's either their fear there, or there's something that's occurring that's where they built it up. So either they are, afraid of losing it, and that's what creates that, or they make decisions, but subconsciously. But I think that, when you truly believe that you are wealthy and abundant, and you have what is internal, right? We create it, we generate wealth, we generate our health. It happens from the inside out. Then you just go and you do it again and again and again, because you know that you have the skill set, the belief system, it's all of those components together is what creates that. And I mean, I think, if you want to live in a big house and you want to travel, like that's okay. Like there's no parameters on what you can and can't have. But I always encourage people to ask themselves, like, what do they value? Because we think, or we will look outside of ourselves and we'll say, oh, we'll see someone else and we'll think that that's what it is. But when you really start, peeling back the onion, like freedom is extremely important to me. I would, and not that you have to, but like if it comes to making more money or maybe having a little bit more free time, I'm probably going to choose more free time. And so, not that you have to pick between the two, but just as an example, like I think we think money is what we're really after, but it's really those feelings that we think we're going to receive from having the money. And that's what you've got to get down to, understanding about yourself.
Mm. I really like the actionable, invitation to think about these things. So, in the work you've done and with the podcast and people you've interviewed, have you pinned it down to like some of the limiting beliefs with relationship or with regards to money that are kind of common for a lot of people? Is there main culprits, so to
Yeah.
speak?
I think it all comes back to our lovability. Like, do we believe that we're lovable no matter what? Do we believe that we're worthy? And do we believe that we're deserving? I think at the basis, like, it's not sexy. I think a lot of times people want to like complicate things and make it more difficult, but I think we all have those core things that we're working through. So if you want more money, you have to ask yourself, is it because you're trying to prove it? Are you trying to keep up with the Joneses? Are you trying to keep up with your business colleague? Are you trying to show and prove something? Or is it because it's coming from that energy of like, I want to see what I'm capable of. And the more money I make means the more people I help, the more that I learn, the more like that's very different energy than I want to make XYZ because so-and-so is making 10 million a year and I'm not there yet. And I want to make it, and the deserving part, like I think as women, and I see this in men too, but more so women, like we don't have a very good receiving muscle. We say we want more money. We say we want, more friendships or ease in our life. But then when those things present itself, we're very quick to be like, no, like we kind of shut it down. Like when your friend offers to pay, how often do you kind of have that banter back and forth of no, I'll pay versus just saying thank you. Thank you for paying for lunch, or thank you for paying for my latte. Or, if, somebody's offered to help pick up your kids from school or soccer practice, do you just say thank you? Or do you say, no, you're trying to? And so I think a lot of women have issues with receiving, and that's okay. It doesn't mean anything about us. And I think the more that we can really work on practicing that skill set of receiving more, money also comes into place with that too.
Mm, that's very interesting. I do see something patterns there where people, including me, like give more and have issues with saying yes, thank you, and that for that to be a potential blocker. So that's thank you for that. Good food for thought. So, Erin, I always like to also encourage my guests to talk about anything else. Are there any initiatives that you're working on? I know you coach people. You have a beautiful web page that I will share on the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
And for people to learn about how you can generate a life well lived. I love the name.
Yeah.
What other initiatives that you have a journal that is posted there? There was something on your webpage about humanity design. Let's see if I
Oh, like human
remember.
design, using
Yes, I
human
love that. I
design.
love that. I
Yeah.
said, I have to ask Erin about this. Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit more about that.
Yeah. Human design was something, when we were talking about money mindset, like I recognized that I had some money blocks, money beliefs, around money. But it wasn't until I found human design and really started to get into the body and recognize like this isn't just a thinking thing. This is also a somatic and being with my body. And so human design is just a system. I describe it like it's just a way for us to understand how our energy moves. And I think in business, a lot of us are taught to go out and initiate and go do the thing. And that's not how there's 5 different types. There's 4 out of 5 of us aren't really meant to go initiate, go do the thing, go, we have an idea and just start that thing. And so it gave me permission to I already knew it, right? Who I was, but it gave me permission to really kind of sink into this is who I am. And this is how my energy is. And this is how I make decisions. And I'm not a quick decision maker, and that's okay. And really recognizing and honoring that versus, in business, which I do believe we do need to take action. We do need, and that is all based on decisions. And I do think some of us can have that paralysis by analysis. But I also think that there are some of us, and me included, who move too quickly because that's how we have been told to kind of to act or to make decisions, And so really slowing down and really checking in with your body and not making a decision on a high or a low, but being really neutral about it. And so helping people understand their human design type, how their energy moves, how they make decisions so that they can really, I call it like sink into themselves, right? Like honor who they really are versus here we go back to looking externally and thinking like, this is how the way we have to build our business because so-and-so says this, or they were successful that way, versus really trusting ourselves with our money and our decision-making and our business decisions that we make. And I use it to help people really tap into their intuition because I don't think business has really been about intuition. It's been very cerebral and logical based.
Mm-hmm.
But women, and I mean, all people, right? We have this within us. We have our intuitive senses. And every time I've made a decision from an intuitive place, it has always worked out way better than I could have ever imagined, the mind could have constructed. And so really having people tap into their intuition and to trust themselves when you're hearing those voices, when you're, really listening and acting on that versus the mind can be so strong at times. So really deconditioning out of the mind and back into the body.
Mm. And I think that's very fascinating because when you talk to people like that, what would you say to somebody? Say, well, I hear the voices, but how do you know it's the good intuition? Because some people say, yeah, I have those thoughts. For you, it has worked probably because you're in alignment. But there's also that chance that, that voice is taking us in different directions. And sometimes like you're afraid of following your intuition.
Totally. That was me for the longest time. That even still comes up. Like I even still see where that happens. And I always say start small, right? And maybe keep a journal or even a mental note of like when I say start small, I mean don't hire someone or fire someone or make completely business pivots based on your intuition when you're first starting out. I would start out with like, do I want to wear this shirt or that shirt today, or do I want to eat here or there today, or what, something that is a smaller step that when you do it you just see and you build up that evidence. Because I think a lot of us have so much evidence on how we have done it with our heads and it has, in an air quote, worked out, but we haven't actually felt so great in the body, right? It's felt like a lot of forcing and pushing energy versus like ease and flow. And so I would suggest starting small, building up that muscle, that skill set of when you do follow, when you do listen to your intuition. And my intuition might show up very differently than yours. Mine is more like a nudge, a very small, like, for instance, like when we were moving to Maui, we had to get our dog with the microchip, and I had gotten the paperwork for him, and had come back into the car, and I just looked at it, and I was like, I should go back in there and make sure that what's actually in his body is on this paper. Well, sure enough, it wasn't. It was incorrect. But it wasn't like, Erin, check this microchip number. It was just like, this doesn't feel right. And so I just went back in. But a lot of times we deny that, we ignore that because it's not this big, a lot of the times that we typically follow our intuition is it's almost like a smack in the face, right? It's just gotten so loud that we can't ignore it any longer. But if we start to listen to it, it's a very soft, it can be a nudge, it can be a hearing, it can be, something you're responding to. And so really starting, I say, very low stakes, because you want to build up that belief system that, listen, when I follow my intuition, look how it works out for me.
Well, that's great. And truly powerful how you're connecting those dots with intuition, with empowerment, with money, and just learning to trust ourselves, because nobody better than us know what you feel inside, what makes you anxious, what makes you happy. And so if we learn to honor those feelings, probably we end up in a better way, in a better place than just resisting what it's happening, and then we end up drained and burned out
Yep.
because we of all the resistance we've done to something that should flow naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we've kind of been taught, I don't know if this is this way in Europe, but in, the Western world, like struggling, right? Like struggling is what you have to do. And I'm not saying we don't put forth effort, right? Like starting a business from scratch, there's effort that I've had to put in, but it is fun. It feels fun and joyful when I sit down to do the work versus I'm pushing through something that I don't like doing or want to do. And so you're struggling. And I think that we can become so used to what struggle feels like. We don't know what ease and when I say effortless, I don't mean no effort. I just mean it doesn't feel like you're going up the hill or kayaking, up the river without a paddle. It feels very different. And the more that we can lean into that and we can say, why am I continuing to do this? Is it because I'm acting? And I would say, anytime you hear the should, ought to, have to, must, that's coming from the head energy, not your body. And so really getting clear, like what beliefs or what belief systems am I having right now that I'm thinking I have to do this or I should do it this way versus trusting yourself.
Well, this has been amazing, Erin. I think you're onto something. Definitely, I will check out the podcast. Everybody here, I invited to listen to it. And, the show is about what makes you tick. And so my last question in every episode is about, besides helping, empowering others, inspiring, because you're very inspiring, what is it that you like to do when you need to reconnect to your heart, to your essence?
If I'm not traveling, then I would say any type of playing outside. Water activity, number one, any type of water activity, but just playing. I don't think a lot of us play as adults. We used to do that as kids, but like what kind of, anything of outside activity, riding my bike, walking, kayaking, anything that's connected to nature, I think is a way to get me back easily back into the body and to,
well,
have fun.
You're in good company. That's probably the most, connecting with nature of some sort, call it the mountain, the sea, like the bigger part of life is usually probably the most popular answer. So anybody out there that's not doing that, chances are if you take a walk or you go for a swim or you go walk in nature, you're going to feel that little joy inside of you that is going to call upon. So I hope everybody takes the time and resource that way. And Erin, I thank you so much for being part of Back to Basics. This has been a very enjoyable conversation.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, everybody. Until the next episode of Back to Basics. Bye-bye. You've been listening to Back to Basics. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast on Apple Podcast or any of your favorite streaming platforms. This is the best gift you can give us. Join me next week for another Back to Basics conversation. And if you want to find out about other exciting things I'm working on, visit leticialatino.com. Thank you, and until the next time.